What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scales 13. Today's video request comes from a subscriber named Silas Burbank. So this video is basically going to explain what to do when your Ackie monitors in shed. A few people seem to have some issues when their Ackie monitors go into shed and they don't really know how to prepare them properly so that way they can shed their skin easily and so that way they can keep their skin healthy. So what I'm going to do today is give you guys some tips on how to help your Ackie monitor shed properly without doing anything that could potentially harm your animal. And conveniently, for the video's sake, Thunder is in shed right now. And curious as ever. So let's start off by telling you guys how I can help you out with your Ackie monitor shedding. So first of all, Ackie monitors, just like a lot of other reptiles, are going to shed more often as babies and they're going to shed less often as adults. Also, as Ackie monitors get older, it's going to take them longer to shed. They're not going to shed as quickly. They're shedding less frequently, and it takes longer for the skin to come off. That's okay, it's normal, it's nothing to really freak out about. Now, there's a few things you can do with your Ackie monitor's husbandry in order to make sure that your Ackie has the proper environment needed to shed properly and make sure that their skin, their tail, and their digits are nice and healthy during the shedding process without causing any problems of losing toes and tips of their tails and messing up their skin, things of that nature. Thunder, this video is about shedding, not about you searching for food and crawling on my hand. We can do an Ackie monitor handling video later. Okay, buddy? All right? What are you doing coming near my thumb? Yes, you're very curious. Yes, I love you too. Yes. All right, guys, so the first thing that's going to help your Ackie monitor when it comes to shedding is having deep, moist substrate, right? Now, the thing is, if you have an enclosure like mine that's a little bit on the smaller end, like a 4x2x2, you can always add a digging box to the enclosure to help your animal feel more secure, hydrate its body, and help it shed properly, right? Well, here's my dig box right here. It's about 9.5 to 10 inches high, and when Thunder wants to, he can completely bury his entire body in there. During the time this animal digs into the dig box, the moisture from the substrate is going to be completely covering the animal's body. That's going to help the skin on the animal's body loosen, and as it digs through that substrate, that sandy soil mix is going to help pull the skin off of the animal. Don't ignore your substrate, guys. Even if you have a enclosure like you should that has a sealing top that holds humidity well, make sure you check on the substrate of your enclosure often to make sure that it's not becoming too dry. Check out my substrate. When you pull away this dry layer and you stick your finger in it, there's plenty of moisture. It can hold shape well. This is going to help my Ackie monitor when it comes to shedding because there's plenty of moisture in the substrate that it needs to help it shed and hydrate its body. Another tip, guys, just like that you do with most reptiles, is make sure that you're always providing water. So Ackie monitors don't drink often, but giving them the option to drink water, it's going to help your animal's overall hydration, which will help the animal shed when it comes time to shed. So keeping a bowl of water in your Ackie monitor's enclosure will help your Ackie monitor with its overall hydration, which will help its overall shedding process. Thunder's getting a little extra friendly right now. The minute I pull out the mealworms, this guy wants to become my best friend. He couldn't find any mealworms, so he was walking away. Love you too, bud. Since we're on the subject of hydration and humidity, guys, please remember to keep your Ackie monitor's humidity around 50 to 60% during the daytime, and that's going to spike much higher, around like 75-80% during the night, if you have the proper enclosure set up. Yeah, guys, so just make sure that you have a nice digital gauge inside of your Ackie monitor's enclosure so you can monitor the humidity accurately, so that way you'll know what's going on inside the enclosure for your Ackie monitor. That's what I love about these dig boxes. So the awesome thing about these dig boxes is they're going to hold humidity longer than the rest of the enclosure. Sure, everything else may dry out on the surface quickly, just because of the fact that this enclosure is very warm, because of course Ackie monitors need very hot temperatures for their basking spot, and they have a pretty high ambient temperature as well. The awesome thing about the dig box is that because it only has a small hole in it, the humidity is going to last a lot longer in a box like this. If you have an enclosure that doesn't allow for super deep substrate, I highly suggest getting one of these. That's another thing you want to do with your Ackie monitor, is make sure you have some rough surfaces in the enclosure for your Ackie monitor to rub up against in order to help your Ackie monitor pull the dead skin off of its body as it's shedding. The simple addition of a few stones and some wood to the enclosure gives your Ackie monitor plenty of rough surfaces that it needs to pull that dead skin off of it as it's going through the process of shedding. Make sure when you use stones in your enclosure to secure them and place them in properly, so that way your animal isn't harmed by having stones that can wind up toppling over on top of your Ackie monitor. So now we're going to get into some things that you shouldn't do when your Ackie monitor is in shed, that I think some people just tend to do because of course they're scared and they want to help their animal, and they feel like if they don't take action that they're doing their animal a disservice and they're not doing what they should do as a keeper. But some of these things just shouldn't be done. Let's start. Okay, number one, do not bathe your Ackie monitor. Guys, remember, this is not a water monitor. This is not a mangrove monitor. This is not an aquatic species of monitor lizard. They're from an arid environment. They don't swim. They don't do well when their body is submerged in a body of water for a long period of time. One thing that happens commonly to Ackie monitors when you do this, their toes tend to swell up. So as far as soaking your Ackie monitors, I'm just gonna say that's just a no-go, guys. You should never soak an Ackie monitor for any reason whatsoever. You know, if your Ackie monitor is just running around in its enclosure and it just winds up taking a splash in its water bowl, that's no big deal because they usually jump right out of the water bowl and just keep on going. And with the hot temperatures, they tend to dry off pretty quickly. But yeah, no soaking. These guys do not do well when it comes to baths. Now, what you can do in place of that, if you're really concerned, is you can lightly mist your Ackie monitor with warm, I repeat, warm water, so that way the animal can have an easier time shedding if it does have some stuck shed that is giving you a bit of a concern. Now, keep in mind you don't want to do this often. Don't use cold water because the animal's body temperature is going to drop far too quickly and it can actually make the animal sick. And it can even give them problems with digestion. You don't want to give your animal a shower with cool water, especially if the animal's just eaten, because think about it, then it's going to have problems digesting his food properly. So yeah, guys, if you are going to mist your Ackie, which is not something you should be doing often because you're very concerned about shed, you don't want any damage to the animal's toes, just use warm water, do it sparingly, and make sure your Ackie hasn't just eaten before you do this process. And the number one thing, guys, that you guys should not do when it comes to helping an Ackie monitor shed is to use something like a toothbrush to try to remove the animal's dead skin. Here's the thing, guys. Now, monitor lizards in general do a pretty tough skin, but their skin isn't that tough. You can easily damage the animal's skin by using something like a toothbrush to scratch off the dead skin, and you can wind up harming the new fresh skin underneath, and you can also wind up messing up your Ackie monitor's pattern. That's a strong recommendation, guys. I would not use a toothbrush to try to brush this animal's skin off. If you do have a really stuck shed and you are concerned, a good alternative would be to use a shedding aid to help your Ackie monitor shed. Now, they do sell quite a few different reptile shedding aids for these animals that can help them shed much easier if they have a problem shed that does need to come off. One shed aid that I would actually recommend is the one from Arcadia. That's a pretty cool one. They do have some really high quality products, and that's one that a friend of mine has actually used before and was recommended by one of the breeders that I talk to quite often, Darren Oliver. So if you guys want a shed aid that has some good merit behind it, I would use that one. There's also other brands that make shed aids as well, but that's just one that I've actually heard some good feedback about, so that's what I would recommend. Well, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the Ackie monitor shedding video. I hope this video helps you guys out whenever your Ackie monitor goes in the shed, just so that way you're not worried about your Ackie monitor during the time of its shedding. Remember, guys, just like all reptiles, Shedding is a normal part of your Ackie Monitor's life cycle, and you have to remember Ackie Monitors are not snakes. They're not going to shed all at once. A little bit of stuck shed isn't really a big thing to be concerned about, because it is normal for an Ackie Monitor that is older to take quite a while in order to shed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thunder's hungry, so I'm gonna keep giving him a few mealworms. Hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to hit me up on the Instagram, scales_13. Hope everybody has a great day. Peace.